Welcome back to the 9th Gym program, and today we are talking about some team building for Series 7 and kind of like my first ideas and a lot of like archetypes and cores that we have that have proven to be pretty well throughout being, high usage on the ladder and just good. Anyway, let's talk about it. So, first off, I have Metagross. Metagross has shown to be a top 5 Pokemon. On Pikalytics we have the preview of usage stats and how it's been on Sports PSIM and so on and so forth. And Metagross has really shown off. It's an amazing Dynamaxer. If you haven't seen my video on it yet, I suggest you do that if you care to watch Metagross or don't really know why it's so good. Essentially, it's a giant Dynamax Pokemon. It gets huge HP. It's really bulky. It's really strong. It can't be intimidated. It's really good. Pretty much you burn this thing or you have to like kill it over the course of multiple turns, in which case its Dynamax just has wreaked havoc over your entire team. And with support from things like Tapu Fini, you can make it so it can't even get burned, which is really huge. So that's why I have Tapu Fini there with Metagross. Now, the other two Pokemon, Salamence and Arcanine, you probably will only want to use one of them. They both serve a similar purpose, but they do have their upsides and, reasons why to use one of them. So, I've been liking them both. I've tested both. Salamence and Arcanine, they're both very good for it. They both have a fast Bulldoze, which activates your weakness policy on Metagross, which is really good. But then you also have Intimidate right off the bat, and then you have Tailwind with Salamence, and with Arcanine you have Will-O-Wisp support. So they both are definitely good, and they have separate coverage, of course, as well. So yeah, they're both really good Pokemon, and definitely, are good things to have with the Metagross. Next, we have Lando Coco. This really shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Lando Coco has been, like, insane in past formats. It's insane in this format. It's just really good. Lando Coco, they both can max, which is really strong, and they can both not max, which is also really strong. You have a set terrain that you're using that during the game, which is pretty good. You can lead them both. I probably wouldn't, but you can. And they can be like really, really strong together. Actually, like leading them is fine. It's completely fine. They cover each other really well. Having the Tapu Koko, your opponent's like, oh, I'm gonna max Quake and kill the Tapu Koko. Well, then you switch into Lando. It's unaffected. They wasted a Dynamax turn. Now they're like staring down a Lando. Instead of a Coco. So like it's typically a pretty hyper offense team. It doesn't have to be though, because Lando has really like solid bulk and Intimidate, of course. So you have like pretty good defensive switches. It's just like it doesn't have to be hyper offense, but you can play it hyper offense as well, which is really good. And then you'll usually have some form of like speed control, whether it's like Tailwind, Tornadus, Tailwind, Whimsicott, Icy Wind Pokemon like Ninetales, or even like Latias or Cresselia, something like that with Icy Wind. Tapu Fini even gets Icy Wind. Like it's just you can have a lot of Pokemon be your speed control of that team, and it can be really good. You also have like skill swap stuff with potentially like Cresselia with Icy Wind, and what was I gonna say? Icy Wind and Trick Room skill swap. You have a lot of really cool things that you can do with that core. So that's really good. And then I had Indeedee Mail there for an imprisoned Trick Room user, just so you can like, not be Trick Roomed, because Trick Room is, something that's really strong against that core being really fast. So that's about it for Lando Coco. Let's talk about the next one, which is just Trick Room. So I think Trick Room, got a big buff. Cresselia is a really strong Trick Room setter, and of course you can use like P2 or Dusclops still as really good Trick Room setters as well. Or even odd ones like the Stakataka or Hatterene, but I'd still want to have like a constant, like a resource of Trick Room that like is bulky and is more reliable. So like Cresselia takes that spot for me most of the time when I would default for like Trick Room. But we also got Stakataka, which is a really, really powerful Trick Room setter. Trick Room setter and Trick Room sweeper, more so the sweeper. It's very, very slow, so it's very fast under Trick Room. It's also really good damage and a really cool typing. It does have quad weakness, but like, it's fine, because max attack of Stakataka is doing a lot of damage. You can Life Orb it, you could weakness policy it with like Bulldoze Dusclops or something. But Dusclops overspeeds it, so you would have to like figure out a proper way to do that, but I'm sure it can be done. I'm sure weakness policy Stakataka can work. But Life Orb is also really strong. And then you have other options for Trick Room still, like the same things we already had, which could be like the Sun route, which is you have Torkoal as your Trick Room Pokemon, other than like the main stack attacker. But you also have Venusaur as like a fast engine, so you can like easily make a pretty good hybrid team that loves hard Trick Room, but it also can just go for a fast route. So you can go for like that 4, Cresselia, Stakataka, Torkoal, Venusaur, and then like a Fastmon in another, like Trick Room supporter, like a Mungus or something. Probably not a Mungus because you set Sun and you already have a Grass, but that it's fine. Like you can figure that out with testing 100%. And then the other core that I have that's like Trick Room stuff that we already knew was Hatterene, Psyspam, Hatterene, and Indeedee. It's still going to be really strong. Like Double Expanding Force is still really strong, but yeah, having like another Trick Room Mon and then like a more fast Mon in the form of Indeedee could be really good. So yeah, Trick Room is definitely really strong in this format. Next we have a Hyper Offense core, and I have Hyper Offense Pokemon and then Hyper Offense support kind of there. There's obviously a lot of them unnamed there in both categories, but as far as like Hyper Offense goes, we definitely have a lot of really good Hyper Offense stuff in this format, and a lot of Pokemon that are Hyper Offense that do offer a lot of bulk as well, and a lot of really good supportive Pokemon that are bulky but also do a lot of things that Hyper Offense wants, like Tailwind, in the form of like a bulky Zapdos gets Tailwind, while also assisting the team by giving it a defensive backbone, which is really, really strong, and something that a lot of Hyper Offense cores kind of lack, is a good support Pokemon that's bulky and does other things and can do damage still, things like Incineroar that we already had, but in like Togekiss that we already had, but now we have things like Tapu Fini that can sit there and like Calm Mind Up. It can also haze opposing Hyper Offense strat or like other strategies, because a lot of the time Hyper Offense won't really sit there and set up. They'll kind of just start swinging because they're really strong Pokemon that are really fast and don't really need like a Swords Dance boost or like a Weakness Policy boost. So having those defensive Pokemon that you can switch into and play defensively when you have to is just really, really strong. So yeah, like those Hyper Offense cores will typically have things like Tapu Lele because it's very frail but does a lot of damage, especially with Expanding Force now. We have Kartana, which once again is not like particularly unbelievably frail because of its good physical defense, but it does have a quad weakness and very, very low special defense. So you have like high special defense Pokemon in the back, like things like bulky Incineroar, like invest into special defense Incineroar that can then intimidate as well. You have like a lot of really good defensive Pokemon that can be really good switches in for those. Garchomp, which also has that quad weakness while also being not particularly very frail, but a quad weakness makes it much more frail. Cinderace is like pretty frail. Tapu Koko is pretty frail. Dragapot. Dragapot's another Hyper Offense Pokemon that could be considered. Dracovish is another Pokemon that kind of needs Tailwind. So you have all these like really good bulky Tailwind setters in the form of like Zapdos or like Suicune, and then you have Pokemon like Tornadus or Whimsicott that could also assist Hyper Offense in setting Tailwind, which is really good. So there's a lot of really good things to consider for Hyper Offense this format, and yeah, it's really good. But Hyper Offense may struggle a little bit with the very, very defensive Pokemon and the defensive nature of a lot of the legendaries that we have coming into the format. So only time will tell how powerful Hyper Offense truly is. But yeah, next we have a couple of other really powerful things here. So next I have Crest skill swap. So Cresselia usually takes a supportive role of Icy Wind or Trick Room and then Helping Hand, or even like Calm Mind and then Cosmic Power and then Stored Power, or even like Side Shock and Ice Beam. So usually Cresselia sits there, takes a couple of hits, sets up Trick Room, chills for a little bit, Helping Hand, Icy Wind, but it can also do things like Skill Swap, which is really cool. We have a lot of Pokemon that don't really like ground typing. Pokemon like Tapu Koko, like Heatran. There's a lot more examples that Cresselia's Levitate Skill Swap could assist that like very, very well. Essentially just removing their big weaknesses or their quad weaknesses in the name of Heatran, or like in Heatran's case. So that can be really good. This is one of the cores that I've kind of like taken a very big liking to. It's mostly Lando, Heatran, Cresselia. Heatran just gets that Cresselia skill swap, but it's also just a really strong Pokemon It makes for a pretty safe core. Lando, of course, is really good and very flexible to Dynamax or not Dynamax. And same with Heatran. Heatran can be a very solid Dynamaxer as well. You probably won't, though. You'll usually just sit there and do really strong Heat Waves, but it's still a really good option. And then Cresselia also gives you that Trick Room option for Heatran. As we've seen things like Chalk in the past, that have given you that really powerful trio core of Cresselia, Heatran, and Amoonguss. If you add, any kind of slow Pokemon like that onto this team, then boom, you have a really good Trick Room core as well as a very fast core, and it's a very flexible hybrid team that I've taken a very big liking to. So I think Cresselia with Skill Swap could definitely be really powerful. Next we have Sun. So Sun, once again, it's just something that you don't have to not know. It's just very, very strong. It's something that we had last format as well. It's just really good. Torkoal and Venusaur, I don't think they'll be bad by any means still. And it's a very flexible team, giving you a fast core as well as a slow core. Out of only 2 Pokemon, it's a very customizable team. You can add a lot of Pokemon. You can go with a Trick Room route. You could go with just fast Pokemon. You don't even have to use Trick Room at all. But then you have Torkoal there for the Trick Room matchup, and you just bring in Torkoal once they set Trick Room, and you're just in the clear. And that's another really, really powerful thing about that team, is it's very flexible. So that's good. I like Sun a lot. I think it'll definitely be still good. I brought it to Players Cup too. It did really well at the beginning. I would have topped, but yeah, you guys know. Anyway, so next we have Sand. Sand, once again, is another powerful past team. It's a weather team. It's very strong. It's very similar to Hyper Offense, where you kind of have this really strong Pokemon in the name of Excadrill that's super fast, but then you also have a pretty defensive Pokemon that does have a quad weakness, being that Tyranitar. So you definitely have a lot of things to consider for Sand. They're very strong Pokemon, but once again, you have the fact that we have so many returning legendaries and stuff that can take advantage of Dynamax, arguably better than Tyranitar or Excadrill. So you have to really realize that if that's what you're doing, if you're using these Pokemon as Dynamaxers, it's probably not as strong of an idea as it could be, right? You could be Dynamaxing something like your Lando. You could be Dynamaxing something like you could be Dynamaxing your Landorus. You could be Dynamaxing your Tapu Koko. You could be Dynamaxing these much, debatably but not really stronger Pokemon. But you're choosing to Dynamax an Excadrill, so you have to realize, what's the cost there. But it is definitely, still really strong. It has access to Max Quake as well as, Max Steel Spike, being able to supplement your own and your partner Pokemon's defense, which is really good. And, it has its own speed control in the form of weather boosting with Sand Rush, doubling its speed. So, a 280 base speed Pokemon is really, really fast and really, really strong. So you can just immediately take out something like a Tapu Koko just by that switch into the Tyranitar, because a lot of people will still have some other form of weather as well. So, yeah, I definitely think Sand is still really strong, and it's really good. It is really what I'm saying. And also you can use Pokemon like that Sand core in tandem with the other Pokemon that are really strong and great Dynamaxers, and you can just use them as an on the side kind of thing. How we were seeing it with Hyper Offense a lot of the time, format or two ago, they would usually take the route of Togekiss Dragapult, but having that Sand core in the back, just to beat them right after you, they're all right, I braved the storm of Dragapult Togekiss, we're good. And now you have Sand to deal with, and that's just a lot to deal with after, sitting there in front of a Dragapult Togekiss, which was arguably the strongest lead throughout, pre-Series 6. So definitely something to keep in mind is Sand in the back, or even just Sand as the lead. It can be really powerful, and I definitely wouldn't sleep on Sand. Next we have Lapras. I think Lapras is something a lot of people that are afraid of Landorus, I think a lot of them are going to kind of move towards Lapras, more so than anything else. Lapras is a really bulky Pokemon that can set a Roar Veil for practically free, and it's really good. Lapras can also be a really flexible Pokemon, being able to use Trick Room on your team, or even go with the Tailwind route. You can EV it to outspeed just about every Pokemon with Tailwind, so that can be really strong. You can EV it pretty easily to outspeed Dragapult, which is one of the top speed Pokemon. So you can have a really good matchup against a lot of Pokemon, Max and then Resonance pretty early, and it's looking really good. you know, a lot of people that are afraid of Landorus have kind of like taken a liking to some of these Pokemon that have ice coverage that are really strong. You know, I've kind of been liking Metagross a lot because it doesn't have to like, it's not just like, hey, you can't do Lando things. It also does so much other stuff, but it also just has a really powerful ice punch. But Lapras also, like I was saying, sets out Aurora Veil. It gives you very good bulk. It's just a really strong Pokemon in general, and it's very flexible. So I definitely think Lapras is a Pokemon to be considering for as like a build around core in this format. And like I said, using like stuff like Trick Room, you know, with Cresselia, Heatran kind of core, and then like maybe a Trick Room Sweeper, maybe like even a Moongus if you want to. Probably not though, because you are going to be setting Lightning sometimes with Lapras. But it's still a good idea. And then you also have things like Tailwind if you want to, and then you have a lot of good mid-speed Pokemon. You could even go with the entirety of the core being Tailwind and Trick Room. I've done that in the past with Lapras teams, and I think it's definitely doable now. You know, having a lot of those mid-speed Pokemon that make Trick Room really good against a fast hyper offense core, but then you also have the option to go Tailwind against like a Trick Room core and deny them Trick Room, which could be really good. So, you know, it's a very versatile core, and it's very flexible. It's really powerful. Next we have... Oh, up this way. Next we have Dragapot. I still think Dragapot is a very solid build-around core. Of course, you know, it doesn't have as much attack, and, you know, to deal with everything in the meta perfectly now. You know, we have a lot of bulky Pokemon once again. You know, Cresselia, Tapu Fini, like Heatran. Very bulky Pokemon that still do a lot of damage and can still set up and be really, really powerful. But you still can't deny the unbelievably fast max airstream, right? Like if you're not sitting there against a Prankster Tailwind user and you set up max airstream, you're attacking with two really strong Pokemon before they're even doing anything, you know. And a lot of the time, hyper offense will really like Dragapult, as we've seen pre-Series 6, but now I think it was Series 7. Dragapult will definitely still see a lot of play, still could be a top 10 mon, if not top 10, definitely top 20. It's unbelievably strong. Having a 214 or 213 speed Pokemon using max airstream, allowing you to get a +1 on your other Pokemon. We've seen it with things like Venusaur, even with just having a fast sleep powder right after. We've seen it with so many Pokemon, and the amount of Pokemon that we still will see it is monumental. We'll still have things like you know, like Togekiss Dragapult, I still think will be really strong. You know, max airstream to make your Pokemon fast. Your Togekiss is now very fast, and hitting very fast dazzling gleams with Scope Lens. That could be a really good archetype. Once again, we also have, you know, newer additions. Like there's like a million options here with this. You know, it's pretty much just like fast to make your guys faster. It's really good. And another idea that I had was with something like Mamoswine, because you can go with Dragapult, max airstream. Mamoswine is now faster than Lando T, and then you kill their Lando T. So if you're like worried about Lando T, that can be a really good option as well. So there's just a lot of ideas there, and Dragapult is definitely a very strong build around core that you should definitely be considering, or at least be ready for on your opponent's field. Like Dragapult was arguably the best like offensive Pokemon, you know, until like Cinderace. And now, you know, I still think it's a very, very strong Pokemon to consider. Next we have, alright, this one's kind of a meme, but at the same time, not really. So this is Chalk. This is what Chalk was in the past. We have every one of these Pokemon, but a lot of it is heavily nerfed, and a lot of it is not that great anymore. So, let me talk about Chalk. This was 2015's most infamous core. It was insane. So it was Cresselia, C. Heatran, H. Amoonguss, A. Lando, L. K. Kangaskhan, Chalk. Weird. But you also had an electric Pokemon as your last one, which would be usually the Thundurus, because it has Prankster T-Wave, it has Prankster Swagger. It's very, very powerful. But we've taken a lot of nerfs throughout the time, and yeah, Thunderwave is worse, Swagger is worse. Kangaskhan does not have a Mega anymore, and even if it did, it wouldn't be the same threat that it used to be. Still would be strong, though, but like, yeah, it's not the same threat that it used to be. It used to have Parental Bond. Mega Kangaskhan had a natural life orb as well as a life. It was a monster. That Pokemon was insane. But yeah, I still think this could be a powerful core. Obviously, we wouldn't be using Kangaskhan. That I added as a meme. You know, regular Kangaskhan. What are you doing? You know. And then of course Thundurus, you know, could see changes. It could even be not Prankster anymore. Instead of like Prankster T-Wave, you might want to change up a lot of things in that core. But the idea is still there. the trio of very powerful Trick Room stuff. Cresselia, Heatran, Amoonguss, very strong still. You can activate Trick Room and then be like, haha. Or you can go with your fast Pokemon and be like, haha. It's very good. So yeah, I wouldn't write off Chalk immediately. Now, I would write off Chalk the entirety of it. We're not using Kangaskhan anymore. But the Cha, like Cresselia, Heatran, Amoonguss could still be good. Amoonguss, of course, also has seen heavily nerfed. Not really like the Pokemon itself, but because Lando and Finny are both going to be top 5, top 10 Pokemon. And, you know, they kind of say, hey, you can't Spore. So that's a medium thing once again. But maybe you could add like Bulu to the team to kind of counter that a little bit. You can switch back in the Bulu and then go for a Spore. So that could be a good option as well. You know, there's a lot of options to be done with this team and this core. And if you're going for another hyper offense Pokemon, maybe you even go Lele instead. And then Lele can also redirect that terrain. So that's just an option. I mostly added Chalk as a meme. But look, okay, the idea is there, and I still think it could be done correctly with the correct players, and we have a lot of very powerful players, you know, a lot of very powerful newer players that have kind of made their big debut into 2020 and has just taken like multiple online events, multiple real events, and just the ideas are there, right? That's pretty much all I'm saying, is that you can play these crazy wild ideas in this format. And it's early in the format, so people will be taking risks and playing really weird cores, and I think, you know, there's a lot to be said. Anyway, that is about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you guys think you have, if you have any other ideas, definitely tell me in the comments down below. I'd love to hear other ideas for the Pokemon, or for Series 7 for VGC. I would just love to hear a lot of ideas. It took me a little while to come up with all of these, and you know, nothing's really set in stone. I think they're all really powerful, but I think there's definitely more, like way more cores that you can use. Anyway, that is going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Join me on Discord. Follow me on Twitter. All those links will be down in the description below. Support me on Patreon. All of those will be down there. Watch me live on Twitch. That's the first one. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. Have fun with Crown Tundra. Goodbye.